So I just finished playing Shadow of the Erdtree, the new Elden Ring DLC, and I have to say, I absolutely loved this DLC, and I feel like it's kind of a game changer for the gaming industry, and I feel like it should really show a lot of other game developers kind of what they're doing wrong and what they need to do to actually create a game that appeals to such a big audience that so many people love, because FromSoft really just hit it on the head, or hit the nail on the head with the new Elden Ring DLC, from the weapon design to the like the location design to the boss design to the difficulty. I think it's all just borderline perfect. So touching on the difficulty for so when the DLC first came out, a lot of people were pretty annoyed about the difficulty spike for the DLC, and even some people were trying to review bomb the game, saying it was too hard, which essentially to them, I'm just going to say, get good, to be honest. I've already seen runs of people going through beating the DLC as a level 1 wretch. So I don't believe that the DLC was too hard. I do feel like there was a huge difficulty jump going from base game to DLC. Going into the DLC, I was level 305, and one of the first bosses I came across, it wasn't even like a main boss, it was just a minor optional boss, and I went in there to fight him, and I got one-shotted at level 305. So, and it's not like my build was bad either. I was wearing Radahn's armor with, like, I think my vigor was at like 60, so getting one shot was pretty nuts. But I feel like it was balanced out pretty well with the Shadow Tree fragments and the Revered Spirit Ashes. So I don't think it was that hard. It was definitely harder than the base game. And once you start to collect some of the weapons from the DLC, it even makes it easier. Especially after this last patch where they kind of nerfed some of the stuff, and they buffed the Shadow Tree fragments to kind of bolster you a bit more than they previously did. But I feel like the difficulty was right there. I do feel like some of the bosses were extra aggressive. Some of them had some ridiculously fast attacks, but I don't feel like there were really any points where you'd be fighting a boss and you wouldn't have a window to attack. Like, you would have the window, it would be there, and it would be small, but it was still fun. I don't think it was too hard to enjoy. And the weapons, I thought the weapons were amazing, at least all of the ones that I found. I spent hours doing a quest line to get the Sword of Night, which was a katana. And this is my fault, blunder on my end. But I ended up selecting the wrong option when I went to go get it, and I got the Summoning Ashes instead of the sword, which stunk. But that was a really cool sword. I've seen lots of videos on it. It's a really cool sword. A lot of the DLC, the weapons that I used were the Great Katana. I went in with a Rivers of Blood build because I essentially beat the game in 2022. I put about 300 hours into it, beat the game. That was my previous build. Last time I'd played that was before they'd even nerfed Rivers of Blood. So I went in with that, and then I quickly switched to a Great Katana. I used that for a little bit, and then the Starlined sword, I think is what it was called, the like magic katana, the new one in the DLC, and that's what I used for essentially the rest of the DLC. And I just thought it was amazing. And the size and scale of the DLC is just kind of insane compared to other games DLCs and the size of those that I've played. Is it worth the $40 price tag? Yes, 100%. I would spend $60 on it. It's essentially a whole nother game within a game. It's probably 3/4 the size of Elden Ring itself. I think base Elden Ring has like 15 remembrances that you can collect from bosses, and the DLC has 10. So it's a pretty massive game or expansion. if it were a game, I do believe that it would be a strong contender for Game of the Year. First DLC to win Game of the Year? No, probably not. But I do believe that it is probably one of the greatest expansions ever created, and I feel like FromSoft has really raised the bar, and hopefully a lot of other video game developers can kind of look at this and see why it's been so successful. And I think I read in an interview with Miyazaki, the creator of Elden Ring, and I like the director at FromSoft, how in preparations for Shadow of the Erdtree, he actually replayed through the base game of Elden Ring, just kind of from the view of a player and not the view of a developer, which I feel like if more developers were to go through and play through games through the eyes of one of us, like a player of the game, they would see a lot of things that they could fix and change rather than going through and just playing to make sure, or testing to see if certain things that they've coded are correct. Like the stakes of Marika, like you can only get to something like that through going through and playing the game and being like, oh man, this run back to this boss sucks. So you'd place a stake of Marika so you don't have to go back through 30 minutes of traversing a dungeon to get to a boss who's extremely difficult and dying over and over and over again. And I feel like that's just kind of something that you can only come to playing through the game and seeing the flaws as a developer, playing the game through the eyes or mindset of a gamer who's just purchased the game to play the game. But I absolutely love this DLC. It is probably one of my favorite pieces of video game media made in the last 5 years. Elden Ring is probably my favorite game made in the last 5 to 10 years, right there with Ghost of Tsushima and probably Ghost of Tsushima, maybe Red Dead Redemption 2, The Last of Us 2, God of War 2018. But I definitely think Elden Ring is better than all of those games. It doesn't even need a difficulty slider. It just does it on its own. And it's not that the game is just hard. That's not, I don't think, what makes the game a good game. I feel like it's the fact that FromSoft doesn't hold your hand through the game, and they give you the tools to kind of intuitively figure things out yourself and kind of solve the puzzle and piece things together and figure out how you want to play the game. And if you want to make the game easy for yourself, you can make the game easy for yourself and kind of give yourself an easy mode just by doing certain builds, using spirit ashes, using different weapons, using different types of armor. Or you can make the game extremely difficult for yourself by going into a fight with no armor, using nothing but a great sword. But yeah, I just wanted to make a quick video talking about the DLC and my kind of thoughts on it. I loved it. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a follow over on Twitch. I stream there about 2 to 3 times a week, and as well as Instagram. And if you want to know when I go live on Twitch or just interact with me in general, you can feel free to join the Discord. And yeah, thank you for watching. See ya.